Hello everyone, welcome to Plant Group 9. This is your samples lecture. I went on main campus and found 7 out of the 8 plants, and then traveled out to Tanglewood to actually get plant number 3. So all but one is on main campus. So let's go ahead and get started with plant number 1, your Glossy Abelia. Now hopefully you can kind of zoom in on this plant. We got some nice samples in your lecture and your samples page. Your Glossy Abelia gets hedge trimmed quite a bit. It starts looking unkempt, kind of like my hairdo here. So people get out the hedge clippers and they cut it back. It starts dying out with inside of it. It's just not getting enough sunlight down in it. And those branches will kind of overlap, kind of like my fingers are here, and it'll get real tight and dense inside, but there will not be any green foliage. These need to just be left alone and grown kind of wild looking, and then go in and cut the shoots that bother you with hedge clippers. But you can use these for foundation plantings. You see it a lot in commercial landscapes, massing. There's all kinds of varieties of these. You've got dwarf ones, you've got some that grow large. So I'm mainly concerned with you guys learning what an Abelia is versus all of the varieties, being able to identify that leaf shape and the twigginess of the plant itself. So has a very mild bloom, I would say. You're not going to see, it's not really grown for its blooms. It does bloom white and has like a reddish purplish tint to the center, which is pretty, but not grown for that. But a very all standby plant. You would see your grandmother growing this on her property back in the day. That's why I call it one of the old-timey plants. Plant number 2 is your Florida Anistree, or your Asilium floridum. I took this sample about 4 hours ago, so it's starting to look a little droopy. So pay attention to your plant samples page and the actual lecture about this shrub. It has a cinnamon-looking flower. When it blooms, very burgundy-ish or dark reddish color. Absolutely stunning when you see it. Grown in the shade, a very good woodsy plant that you could grow along your wood line or whatever, and then you've got that burgundy flower that pops out. So it can be used, I think, as a focal point just because of the blooms. Standalone plant, but a very attractive plant in itself. Now we're going to look at the sister plant of it, your Asilium parviflorum, or your small Anistree. And even though this is not the Asilium floridum, this is the Asilium parviflorum Florida sunshine variety. As you can see, just that bright yellow. And I took this, like I said, about 4 hours ago as well. It's darkening up a little bit. As you can remember, as we walked through Tanglewood earlier, I think I got some video footage of it, that it was more of a golden color then, but it's darkening up a little bit. But this is your small Anistree. You could plant this in a dark, shady spot, and it's going to brighten up the area just because of the reflectiveness of the leaves. So I love plants that can do that. I mean, this is planted in full shade, and it's going to brighten up an area. So if you've got a dark spot or a dingy area in somebody's back corner up against the house, whatever, you can plant something like this and it'll add some brightness to the color. Now, number 4 is our Pansy. Now, I did take a sample of the Pansy, and it wilted before I got to my next destination. So I do have a picture here of your Pansy. There's several varieties of this, several colors, a mixture. You'll see mixed color beds with oranges and purples and whites and blues and yellows. Every color out there, I feel like they have it in the Pansy color, which is a beautiful, beautiful plant. This is a winter annual that people enjoy throughout the cold. Pansies love dry, cold weather. It's been a tough year on the pansies because we've had a lot of rain. If it's dry, they're going to do fine. Now they need their water, but what they do not like is wet feet. They want to dry out, and they love it crisp and cold. So it's kind of been a bad year for the pansies. And then in our video of walking around campus, you'll see the smaller ones. And I always knew the smaller ones as the violas. And I always called this picture right here in my hand the Pansy. So I would call this Pansy, and then the smaller one that we see in the water feature bed there next to the RLS Center, just outside of horticulture. That purple and orange one is what I always grew up knowing as the viola. And so that is your plant number 4. Plant number 5 is your flowering kale or your ornamental cabbage. And like I said, this little individual is getting kind of wilted, but I love that purplish color. It's beautiful in the landscape, and people always mix the flowering cabbage or flowering kale with the pansies, and it looks outstanding. So it gives you that colorful bed during the winter. I mean, everybody's kind of, tired of the cold weather and everything, but you can walk by a nice pansy bed that's got some ornamental cabbage in it, and you're just going to cheer up with all the different colors that we can find. So this little plant here will brighten up a bad cold day, but they like the sunshine as well. Plant number 6 is your Viburnum progenes. My sample again on that one I didn't get enough, to be honest with you, so I had to print a picture here, but I do have 2 plant samples that I'm going to show you of the Prague Viburnum, and I want you to pay close attention to the difference in the backside, this one being the backside and this one being the front of this type of plant. It's just got that silverish green underside color, which is very identifiable for the Prague Viburnum. These plants are getting ready to bloom wide open, and hopefully when you're back on campus, you'll be able to walk over to the Bob Green Hall and actually see that one. That is a huge plant up against the nursing building. Plant number 7 is your Shindo Viburnum. These are plants that our nursery production class grew a few years back, and we got to plant them on main campus with the maintenance crew on campus. So we had a good project. We got to plant these, mulch it, along with our horticulture staff there on campus. But it was fun actually growing these plants and being able to use them in the landscape. Perfect for screening, and that's what we've done along the fence line there outside of horticulture. We're trying to screen out the fence that they had to put up. Nobody wants to see a chain link fence, even though our gardens are in a chain link fence, but this will be a good planting for that. And nice little bloom on them, but a big waxy shiny leaf there on the Shindo Viburnum. And then last but not least is your Viburnum Tinus. I've always called it the Tinus Viburnum, but they're calling it the Loris Tinus Viburnum. And here you can see it already in full bloom. And this one's over by Winston Building, the old horticulture building there on main campus. So it's kind of hidden underneath some other trees. So you just kind of have to jump down onto that retaining wall and get a good little sample of your Tinus Viburnum or your Viburnum Tinus. And so that wraps up your lecture, your samples lecture. So go and collect samples, guys. Get your own samples, create your own sheet, number them 1 through 8, and then print out the one I have and study for it, and enjoy walking around campus in Tanglewood. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you in the next lecture.